From the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to High Velocity Radio. I'm your host, professional EOS implementer, Joshua Kornitsky. And today I've got a guest with me that I'm really excited to have. I have Andrew Hartman. He is the founder of Time Boss, a training and coaching company that helps leaders and their teams get results from a place of peace, not stress. I'm very excited to learn more about that. What makes Andrew's approach different is where it came from. Not a textbook, but 15 years of personal experience. He's a speaker, a coach, and a soon-to-be author. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Joshua. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm really thrilled to learn more about what it is you teach, what you espouse that helps people work from a place of peace. It sounds frankly too good to be true, so I'm going to ask on that. But first, I always like to start with, can you share kind of your origin story? How did we get to this point in your professional and personal life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take you back to the very beginning. Grew up in a great home, had great parents. I was taught, just like everyone, to have a to-do list. I was taught how to use a calendar. Found myself in my late 20s in a role where I had way more to do than time to do it. And I was suddenly aware that I had no clue how to interact with time, and I was almost instantly overwhelmed. Was doing my best, cared deeply about my contribution, cared about my work, wanted to do great work, also wanted to be a great husband, wanted to be a great dad. I just cared about a lot of things. And probably like a lot of people listening, I was pulled in a million directions from caring. I wanted to be good at all those things. And so said yes to way more than I had the time to make happen. And it started impacting everything. Impacted my relationships, impacted my relationship with my wife, or the time that we could connect. I could be, physically home on the couch trying to have a conversation with her, but emotionally everywhere else, thinking about the projects I had to manage, thinking about the email I had to get back to. Same with my kids, playing trains on the ground with my son and just literally just counting down the seconds until bath time, bedtime, so I could get back on my computer and make work happen that I felt so much pressure to make happen. So it had a significant impact on my relationships, especially my ability to be present. That overwhelm came from my ability to be present. And I think that's what a lot of people experience.
I wish I could tell you everything you've shared so far was alien to me. I really wish I could. And unfortunately I can't. So what happened, right? So you're feeling this sense of being overwhelmed. There's no shortage of folks who share that. What clicked, what changed, what made you see the world through a different lens?
Yeah. Well, I think what I experienced and what I've come to see in the research, now that I've been doing this professionally, is I was in a long brownout, where it was impacting my relationships, my health. It was impacting the results I wanted. The very contribution I was trying to make, that just started deteriorating as well, because when we become cognitively overloaded, it just changes the way we make decisions. It changes the results that we get. We're less collaborative. We seek less best practice. We stop delegating, all these crazy things we do. So it's really this, this negative flywheel that drives us into the ground. And for me, it ended in utter burnout. I was in early stage software companies. I was a leader in those organizations. We had a massive product release we were trying to get out. I was telling myself, we just got to get past this project. We just got to get past this project, as if I might be a different person on the other side of that project. We ship that project. 4 days later, client comes back with a massive change order, and my brain just snapped. I broke, fully burnt out.
Wow.
Burnout is your brain doing the math and saying, this is not working. We are done pushing this rock up the hill. And the challenging thing about burnout is your brain doesn't know what to do. It just knows you can't keep doing what you were doing. And so it subtracts all motivation from that activity. You effectively become allergic to stress in that environment. And it was a tough situation. I put everything at risk. I was the sole provider for my family at the time. Put them at risk. I put my team at risk. I put our investors at risk. I put our clients at risk, everything at risk. And it was 100% my choice, because I cared deeply and I didn't know how to respond to that caring. I just kept saying yes. So, rock bottom for me I what a lot of people do when they burn out is they leave their job or they
Right.
take significant time off. And I wasn't in a position to do either of those things. And in fact, I really cared about my contribution. I cared about my impact. And so it was interesting, Joshua. I just made a very silly statement. I said, I've got to figure out a way to get results that I'm proud of. I want to contribute the way I want to contribute, but I have to figure out how to do it from a place of peace and not stress because I knew what the stress was like and I knew I couldn't go back there. And so I didn't even know if that was possible. 75, 76% ish of knowledge workers experience burnout now on an annual basis.
I can I can vouch for it. How about that?
Yeah, I joked last week in a workshop I was leading. It's like Christmas. It just comes around every year.
Yeah.
And so it was almost naive on my part to think that an alternative way might be available. But I was a product person. I worked in early stage startups. I knew how to build things. I just made myself the customer and I started iterating, hundreds of iterations, read every book you can probably think of on time management, just looking for ingredients of like what portions of this are going to help me get the results that I want from a place of peace and not stress.
So it sounds like
And
you went into research mode.
I was experimental. I mean, it was an experiment. I
Right.
became the experiment. My
Okay.
brain, my stress. I was a blunt object. I mean, I was not looking at the neuroscience of it. I just was trying to very practically solve this problem. And I wasn't trying to build a framework called Time Boss. I just was trying to get out of my own way because
Okay.
again, I'd burnt out so bad. And I mean, just through brute force, Joshua, I solved it and
Really?
started to get incredible results from a place of peace. Began running circles around people in terms of the impact I was making, forced my team to do it because I said, you guys have to operate this way. I can't go back to where I came from. I need you to do this with me. And obviously I had authority over them. And I could make them do it. And they started experiencing incredible results from a place of peace and not stress.
So you had
Not,
them work harder and faster, and that did it?
no, not harder and faster. No, yeah, no, not at all.
Just nose
Not
to
at
the
all.
grindstone more.
And that's what we're told.
Of course it is.
It's
That's why I'm joking with you because
yeah.
it doesn't work harder.
Yeah. Well, and it's in our culture reinforces it, right?
It
We give
does.
out awards for hustle.
Right.
And we respect that person that's going to put in that extra time and in our environments. I mean, for me, I was rewarded for that grind. I ended up a COO of early stage software companies. We were incredibly successful, and I was overwhelmed the entire time until I made a change.
Well,
And
and I
so,
interrupted you. So you got your team to
yeah,
follow along with what you had discovered and
yep,
I presume documented in some regard at that point because it was still experiential and experimental as you said.
yeah, yeah,
Um, is it and I'm not trying to oversimplify, is it habits? Is it beliefs? Is it perspective? Is it all of
yeah.
those? Is it none of those?
It's a little bit all those things. So it starts with a very fundamental idea that there's only three types of things that we ever work on. And again, all this discovered via brute force and it's formed together now. But there's only three types of things we ever work on. There's recurring tasks, which are things that we've already said yes to.
Right.
We do it every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. And our world often operates on recurring tasks. Our businesses are typically built on recurring tasks. And so we've already
Absolutely.
said yes to those things. There's one-time tasks, things that we do one time and check off and we're done. We don't go back to it. And that's what we think most of our world is. We think of it as one-time tasks and recurring tasks. And we would love to fill our calendar with those things because we think that's what the work is. But there's actually a third type of task I call the unknown task. It's the thing that at 6 a.m. I didn't know was going to be my priority, but by 10 a.m. I am very aware that this urgent, important thing is now my priority.
The fire.
And the fire. And most people orient their world to the fire because the fire has hurt so bad in the past that they never want to feel that pain again. And so they're and especially when we have more to do than time to do it,
Sure.
fires become very clarifying. When I have a menagerie of things I could work on, a fire is very clarifying that I should work on this right now.
As the expression says, it's a moth to a flame. You're drawn to it. It
Yeah,
suddenly, whether it is or isn't, is a different subject matter, but it is
correct.
now the glowing ember. It now requires your attention because we all believe the fire will spread if we don't address it immediately. So
100%.
everything
That's
else has
exactly.
to wait.
Well, and some people, unfortunately, we become addicted to the fires because there's great clarity in the fire. We love clarity.
We're always a
Um,
hero.
Yeah, it's
I
Superman's
mean,
a
why wouldn't I
thought
want
leader
to be a
guy.
fireman? I'm
Exactly.
always a hero. I mean,
Right.
all the stuff you hired me for, I don't ever get to do. But every time there's a fire, you can count on me to be the first guy there.
Yeah. I mean, it really does have like this dopaminic cycle that just
Sure.
gratifies people. And a lot of people get stuck there professionally. And to your point, like, yes, they are productive, but they're not working on the things that are actually going to make a difference in the business. And
I
so what I discovered is those three things, like our entire world, I mean, truly, we could sit here and work through it together, but this is what we do in workshops with teams. We help them
sure.
understand it's just those three things. And if once you can see that, it's like putting on a new lens of how you look at the world. It simplifies what feels so chaotic and so complex that's coming at us. And so if we can think that way, if we can operate that there are only three tasks, the next layer of time bosses, there's just three tools. And each of those tasks, those type of tasks, goes to a specific tool. And so it just was a simple way of looking at the world. And often what we do as knowledge workers is we spread our context everywhere. We've got calendars, we've got to-do lists, we've got post-it notes, we've got whiteboards, we've got browser tabs we've never closed, we've got all the things that we're thinking about in our head, and it just overwhelms us. It does not respect the way, whether you think we were created or we evolved this way, doesn't matter. Our brain operates a very specific way, and it's intended to be present to one thing at a time and make decisions about the thing that it's being present to. That's what it's intended to do. But we end up treating it like a storage device, jam-packing it with so many things, not giving it clarity in terms of how our tools work. And it puts us in this reactive kind of distressed state, very low on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we're just trying to survive. We're just trying to keep things moving. And it, truly makes the room feel like it's on fire all the time. And if the room's on fire, I either need to put that fire out or I need to run. Those are my only
Right.
options.
Right. Fight or
There's
flight.
no, yeah, you can't sit still. There's no, I'm going to sit down and work on the most important thing for my business because I feel this chaos in the back of my head yanking me everywhere else. And so what we try to do with Time Boss then is just simplify it. And this is again, it wasn't Time Boss at the time when I was solving it for
Sure.
myself,
It
having
was
my
just
team
the
do it.
solution to your problem.
I had identified that there were three tools that were critical that you
When
you have. Go ahead.
just you touched on something that hit a nerve for me as a lifelong technologist because I've been in IT from a sales perspective, from an operational perspective, from a software development perspective, as a chief technology officer, all different roles. And I can tell you that one of the traps you just kind of mentioned but kept moving is we are all looking for the golden application that will solve all of this. And don't you know, AI is that application where I can just vomit all my problems and it'll prioritize them for me with absolutely no context or understanding. But
Right.
we have come to a place of dependency on technology that we think one more app, one more SaaS technology, one more AI tool, and this will all be solved for me.
Right.
And in every morning, I'll wake up with a plan that'll tell me exactly what I need to do, and that's just not how life works.
Not how life works. Yeah, the actually AI calendaring has seen tremendous abandonment because of what you said. It lacks context. And also there is an agency that we as humans love. I mean, our brains are just wired this way. It's called the IKEA effect. I love the things that I create. It's the reason why we all accepted crappy college of furniture in our dorms because
Sure.
we built them, and so we felt this ownership in them. And so our priorities in our calendar, we value taking ownership and we value like literally burning the calories to decide what should I work on and what should I not work on. And we are much more likely to commit to it when we run that process. If we outsource that to an AI and it throws a bunch of stuff in our calendar and 8 o'clock we show up and we're like, well, I don't really want to do that, or I feel
Sure.
like these are actually the more important things, we just end up abandoning the plan and doing it our own way anyways.
Which
So
is a struggle for everybody to prioritize
100%.
that day because it still speaks to what you identified. The three major things that occupy your day
Right.
are not necessarily connected to your calendar.
No. And that's what's critical. This idea of time boss, where the name came from, is this idea that I must have times where I am the boss. Like I am making decisions to set my future self up to be successful. Excuse me. And then there are other times where I'm the employee, where I simply need to make the plan happen. And so time boss, we talked about the three tasks. I shared that there's three tools, and then there are two habits. There's habits that drive it. There's a weekly planning process where you literally assume that time, boss time, and you're saying, what does my future self need to be successful? How much capacity do they have? What activities of all the things that could compete for my time, what activities are actually aligned to my goals and values? How do I ensure I'm making room for buffer or in time box, we call it whirlwind time? How do I literally budget for the crazy, the things I can't predict?
Sure.
And then what do I do with all the things that don't fit that are going to cause me stress, fear, and anxiety all week long if I don't deal with them? How do I make the room stop feeling on fire? And so it's this really powerful weekly planning process that forces you to deal with your finiteness as a human being and forces you to align your calendar to your goals and values. And again, like we were just sharing, what you're doing is you are anchoring then your intention in those activities. These are not flippant things that got tossed on your calendar.
Sure.
These are the things that are aligned to your goals and values that represent the world that you want to exist, that now appear as calendar appointments on your calendar in the very same way as if the President of the United States was showing up to meet with you on your calendar. That's what we begin to treat them like because they are so critical. And I joke that, you pick your president, it doesn't have to be the current president, whatever president you want. It could be
Right.
Abraham Lincoln, I don't care, doesn't matter. But it changes your orientation to that work when you do the work to make decisions about what's going to go on your calendar. It's an intention anchor that locks you in. And
And
so it's,
well, so I'm sorry, I get excited as I hear you
please,
explain the concepts, and I don't mean to interrupt. I
no, it's fine.
apologize.
Not at all.
How do you hold yourself accountable to that planning? Because a planning meeting is a great planning meeting, and as an EOS implementer, I do them on a quarterly basis with my clients. But what I can't do is force them to adhere to it, other than to show them the wisdom of doing so produces the outcomes they want.
Right. Yeah, so there's a bunch of strategies there, and I often joke that the final boss of getting what you want is you. It's we get in
Sure.
our own way often. So a couple things happen when you operate this way. One is, so let's say I run a weekly planning meeting, that time boss time, and I create a plan that's realistic. It's not pretend. Hope is not a strategy. It's
Sure.
actually grounded in reality. It's very specific. I have a clear sense of what I'm trying to get done. I've budgeted for the unknown tasks, meaning I've got reasonable buffer in my calendar, knowing I can't control all of my time. I've dealt with the items that don't fit, so I've either deferred them or delegated or I've deleted them literally, so that this next 7 days I don't have to worry about them. I'm safe. So a couple things happen there. One is this is where peace becomes the way that you operate because now you feel like you actually have room to work. You don't feel like a guillotine's hanging over the top of your neck. And when people feel that way, they're much more likely to stay committed to their plan. They're much more likely to divert if they feel like the room's on fire. That's when we go sideways. So that's one. Simply having a realistic plan
Sure.
increases the likelihood that we follow through. The other thing we do, so we implement with teams, and one of the primary things we do is the last step of running a weekly planning meeting is this commit step where I actually share my plan with my whoever I report into or my coworkers or
There's
whoever
your
reports into
accountability
me.
right there.
Yeah. And there's two things that happen when you do that, Joshua. The first is you are twice as likely to do what you said you're going to do if someone else if you've shared that plan with someone else and they're likely to hold you accountable to it. So your team, your coworkers, my wife is my business partner. I share my plan with her. We're twice as likely to follow through if someone else is aware of our plan. The other thing that helps us to commit is often, especially when people first get started with this weekly planning meeting process, they're not sure if they're choosing the right things. Or, up until now, their weekly planning is this fun little secret that they've kept to themselves. When you show someone else, you get realistic feedback. Kelly and my wife might say to me, Andrew, you have way too many priorities next week. That's not realistic. Like you are trying to pay with a credit card, not in cash.
Right.
Or she might say, hey, I saw you deferred that one that we've talked about is actually our number one priority, or it's a rock in EOS that we know we need to be working on. Is there something that you've prioritized that maybe we need to deprioritize so you can work on that critical item? Again, whatever feedback I get, it increases my conviction to follow through because now I'm settling into, okay, this is a realistic plan. It's aligned to the goals and values that I have. And another rational human being is now aware of my goals and values and is likely to ask me about it. And I care about how I show up to other people, so I'm much more likely to follow through.
at a very high level, that makes very clear sense to me because it does, as you intimated with regards to EOS, it aligns beautifully with what EOS teaches our
Right.
clients to understand about accountability. And as my mentor and boss used to say, learning how to separate the critical few from the meaningless many. Often there is that challenge that in those early days of getting people okay with letting go of things that they believe they need to get done, but they don't actually have to get done.
Absolutely.
And when you distill it down and ask people to prioritize based on here is how much time you have available, you've got to make some difficult choices about where your priorities lay. And while I'm
100%.
not sure that that aligns completely with your approach to things, what my question to you is who is Time Boss? Do you consider it a methodology? Do you consider it an educational path? All something else? How do you describe the principles that you're sharing?
Yeah, so we describe it as a framework a learnable framework that's simple and repeatable. And so what we're doing, again, I shared it. It's three tasks, three tools, two habits, and it's all focused on this idea of your high sustainable pace. What is the maximum impact you can have that you can sustain operating from a place of peace, freedom, and clarity, not stress, fear, and anxiety? So we teach it. We help people set up those three simple tools. And to your point earlier, Joshua, it's not new tools.
Right.
It's tools they already have. So if they're in the Outlook environment, it's their Outlook calendar. It's a Microsoft to-do list. Very simple tools. If they're in the Google environment, it's Google Calendar, Google Tasks. We customize it based off the company to the team.
Sure.
But again, it's once you're set up and running, it's a set of habits. It's an approach to time that allows them to get the results that they want with that experience of life that they actually want, operating at their highest sustainable pace. That's how we think about it.
So is this for senior leaders? Is this for mid-level managers, or is this for anybody in any organization?
Yeah, so we primarily work with senior leaders and managers. That's kind of manager level up. That's who we work with. But really, it's for any knowledge worker, meaning I get paid for the decisions I make and the information I move,
Right.
and who has authority over their time. Meaning, if I work a 40-hour work week or a 50-hour work week, however many hours I work, I have authority around what I do with that time, and I'm responsible to get results with that time. Those individuals are the most stressed out individuals in the history of the world because their entire day is trade-offs. Their
Sure.
entire day is there might be something else I could do that would be greater value than the thing I'm doing right now. Or something can catch on fire and I have to evaluate real time. Should I keep working on what I'm working on or do I work on this new thing that just walked through my door? Incredibly stressful. This is why knowledge workers burned out. 3 out of 4 knowledge workers burn out once a year. It's just we don't have mental models for how to think about infinity. And all of us as knowledge
That's
workers are
well
our
said
workload, our to-do lists are infinite. They are
and ever refreshing.
ever refreshing. The average person has 121 items on their implicit or explicit to-do list all the time. Doesn't matter how many they check off. It doesn't matter how hard you work today. Your to-do list will still be infinite at the end of the day today. And if you don't have a way to think about that and approach that, burnout is almost automatic in that environment.
Yeah, I mean it's built in.
Yeah,
It really is.
yep.
So when you work with teams of senior leaders or senior managers, is it an ongoing process? Are
Yep.
you working with them to continue to build these skills? Because we
Yeah.
both know that one and done's never a good recipe for someone to retain something.
No, they don't work. It's called the forgetting curve. You
Yeah.
walk out the door and forget 90% of what you learned in that session.
I have a
Doesn't matter
beautiful
how,
graph on that I'll send you.
yeah, it's so critical. So yeah, so we have three phases. We have an education phase, which is just training. It's in a half day, you learn the entire Time Boss framework, you get everything set up, get your tools set up and configured, and we walk through the habits together, the weekly planning meeting habit and the daily review meeting habit. And then, so that's the education phase. Implementation phase is where we help people install those habits and we help them work through the roadblocks because all of us have roadblocks.
Absolutely.
We've lived into our habits related to time, some of us for decades out of survival either to survive or to thrive. Maybe they've been really helpful for us, or they've helped us be very successful, but they've still left us very overwhelmed. It just takes work to change those habits and shift those perspectives. So that's an 8 week process. We do it through group coaching where we're helping people week over week over week implement one more piece of the framework and really just remove any roadblocks that prevent them from changing. Most people get it in 4 weeks, and then we're really just solidifying on the back half of that engagement. And then ongoing, so we have education, implementation, and then transformation. How do you, once you transform the way you work,
Right.
and it truly is transformational. So when people implement Time Boss, 95% experience more peace, less overwhelm. And then that piece becomes the engine of progress. They see a 43% jump in productivity on average. Perceptively, they feel like they get 5 hours back in their week, all while experiencing less stress. It's incredible because it's just the way our brains were architected.
The
So I'll say one quick thing,
No,
Joshua, and then
please.
I'll toss it back to you. So once people get that from implementation, they are very interested in keeping it. And so the third phase of Time Boss, we call it transformation, really is all about how do I sustain these gains? And I call it de-weeding the garden. We are just Time Boss as an organization is just outside accountability to come back in and help them maintain that way of operating. Often actually tied to the a quarterly goal setting process like an EOS 90-day meeting or a quarterly
Sure.
meeting where they've now received these new priorities, these new things that they're focused on, often in the form of rocks. How do I integrate that into what feels like an already full schedule? That's where Time Boss is just a really powerful methodology to help them treat their time like a cash budget that they need to thoughtfully allocate, figure out what stays on their calendar, figure out what they need to delegate. And so we help companies do that ongoing in that transformation process.
And is this coaching available to individuals or only at this time through working through the organization that you're a part of?
Yeah, great question. So we primarily work with teams, though we do quarterly offer group coaching for individuals. So that's a 6 week process. We call it Master Your Week. The next one is launching here in July 13th.
Somebody I know
And
would like to get some information about that. So where would they get that information?
so it's available on our website, timeboss.us. If you look under the individuals section, you'll see Master Your Week. And yeah, and if anyone's curious about it, they should just grab time with someone from our team. We'd be happy to help them
Perfect.
understand what might be a good fit. We have other offerings for individuals. Master Our Week is the one that I suggest. It's the one where you're working directly with me or another Time Boss coach, where it really gets into your particular world, your particular roadblocks, and helps you take a next step.
So first, let me compliment you on accomplishing something through very hard work that demonstrates the value of simplicity at its highest
Yeah.
level, because you said that there are three principles, three tools, and two habits. Is that it?
Yeah.
Principles,
Three tasks.
three
Yeah.
tasks.
Three
It
tasks that connect to three tools that are run by two
it
habits.
it, it doesn't get too much simpler than that, and I know from my perspective that the simpler we make things, the easier they are to adopt. And while I'm sure that discipline is involved to get them to stick, just like any change in habits, it seems to me like you're not asking for a 37-step process spread across 19 months, because those are the things that often fail just under their own weight.
Right. Yeah.
Um, can you share any of the successes that you've experienced since Time Boss has come into being? Just maybe a story or two of folks that you've seen it make a big difference for yourself,
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
included.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's transformational. I am about to go on a week-long fishing trip with my son. I
Nice.
spent a week with my daughter in an RV 2 months ago for her final senior project, and all while running this growing business that I'm passionate and I believe in. And it wasn't because there wasn't things to do. There 100% were. I operate with an infinite to-do list even now because
Sure.
I'm a business owner and I'm a trainer and coach and all these things. And it allows me to continue to get incredible results, contribute at a level that I want to contribute, and get the life that I want, not through any magic. It's just because it's a simple system that I trust that frees me up to be fully present to whatever's in front of me. That's the gift. So, I experience the benefit ongoing. I eat my own dog food every single
Sure.
day, every single week. So I'm a big believer. In terms of individuals, we've had a software team that installed Time Boss. They saw 100% jump in their productivity over the course of 8 weeks. They
100%.
100%. It was a massive jump.
Wow.
Perceptively, they felt like they got 10 hours back a week. Their CEO, their senior leader, felt like he got 20 hours back in his week simply from eliminating noise that he was allowing to persist, where he just had not pressed through to figure out how do I align my calendar to my goals and values? How do I deal with the things that don't fit? They just did the work. And so, again, just incredibly compelling results. Um, we've seen teams that were on the verge of burnout, tremendous overwhelm, come back in their reviews and say, "I finally got my nights and weekends back,"
Wow.
while maintaining or increasing their results. And again, it's not magic. At a very basic level, it's what I said earlier. We treat our brain like a storage device, and we tolerate so much stress. We don't realize that stress is a signal, distress in particular. Distress is a signal that something is sideways and something is off, that we've exceeded our capacity to hold the things in front of us. And so, if we simply honor the way that our brain is architected and build systems that we trust to hold the items that help us represent in the very same way that a cash budget helps us represent that we have enough money,
Right.
a system that we trust represents that we have enough time. And when we have enough time, a different person shows up. And I feel so thrilled to give that to individual leaders and teams day after day, week after week with Time Boss.
And as someone who often my clients, EOS is a journey. And when a client embarks on that journey, like weight loss, like weightlifting, there
Right.
are not immediate evident results,
That's right.
because you need time for the habits to make a change.
Right.
But you said something really important. There is no magic here. You just have to kind of stay the course for a bit, and it does sound like, compared to something like EOS, which is over its full implementation, can take up to 2 years. It depends on the team. It sounds like working with Time Boss has a pretty fast acceleration arc, because
Yep.
I presume it's pretty self-evident once you get started, and with your support and coaching to keep them on track, it's got to make life easier, without splitting concepts. I'm just curious because I immediately think of our IDS process: identify,
Yeah.
discuss, and solve. And so often my clients get lost in the prioritization.
Right.
And that, going back to what my mentor always said, that critical few versus meaningless many. Without asking you to give away the house, I
Mhm.
presume there are, part of what you're going to teach them is to understand what matters versus what can wait or be put off or not dealt with.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So that time boss time is so critical. That weekly planning meeting I shared, I often tell knowledge workers it's going to be the hardest hour of your week, because it's the hour where you deal with your finiteness. You have to deal with all the trade-offs. It is a funnel that drives you through your limited capacity and makes you make powerful decisions about what you say yes to and what you say no to. And so, when an individual leader does this, it can be more challenging. When you do this as a team, it is so powerful because a couple of forces are at play. One is that we all want to win together. And so, particularly when you have a leader with leaders that report into that leader, where they can do a little bit of a round robin around, like, hey, I'm feeling pressure. Like, I'm maxed out on my time, but I've got these other priorities over here. How should I navigate that? For a senior leader to come in and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and help someone get clarity, what they've done is they have now freed that person up to focus. They have helped them see there is enough time this week for the critical items, and we're going to safely defer these for a week, or we're going to move these from you over to Sarah over there, who actually has some capacity this week, and she can help you with those.
The
And so
piece that
again,
I missed was that planning is done collectively. That's a game changer.
it depends on the organization. So part of our work is figuring out what is the right clustering for
Right.
this. And so, I mean, incredibly powerful. Let's say you and I, Joshua, we're going to start a workout program, and I'm going to do it on my own and show up at 6 a.m. That's option one. Or I'm
Right.
going to do it with you at 6 a.m. That's option two. I am so much more likely to follow through on option two. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be doing the same sets together, doing
Sure.
everything together, but we're going to be at the gym at the same time. And the fact that we are aware that each other at the gym at the same time increases the likelihood that I show up. Now, I might have a moment when I'm in the gym where I need you to spot me or you need
Right.
help with something, and then we're right there to help each other. And that's how time boss planning can work. Let's all show up. Let's plan this thing out. Oh, I hit friction. I'm out of capacity. Anyone have 4 hours? I need help with this report, or I need to think through this, or someone needs to work with this client on this particular issue. Oh yeah, I've got time. Let me help you with that. Because again, especially in healthy environments where we want to win together, my guess is in EOS environments like you're in, typically those teams want to win together, and
In
it's an
almost
incredible
in
opportunity.
every successful deployment, absolutely. But
Yeah,
the light that you are inadvertently shining that I picked up on, and it's because I see this so often in my past career as well as with my clients, where oftentimes you have that key individual, the carrier of the water, the individual for whom everybody knows, oh, just go ask this person because they'll take care of it, and that person is they have passed red line months ago. They
right.
are overstressed, they are overworked, they are overburdened, but they don't know how to say no. And there's no awareness because six different people are asking for 20 minutes of time when they only have 20 minutes available.
Right.
So I imagine that this process very much helps alleviate the stress for them because others become aware of the fact that you simply cannot continue to put things in the bag. The bag is full.
Yeah, we call it time empathy. I've become very aware that Joshua has priorities just like me, and there's only so much time, and so we're much more likely a framework or a way that we talk about this with teams is asking the question, how do I get this need met with the least disruption possible? And when you begin to operate with the framework as a team, one is we are all aligning our calendars every single week to our goals and values. So the most important work is going to get done. The other is we are all thoughtfully planning in that whirlwind time or that buffer time into our calendar. So I know if I need Joshua, I know Joshua has allocated time to be available for urgent and important requests that are going to come in. So I'm not just going to interrupt Joshua. I'm going to say, "Hey Joshua, what time today works for us to connect for 20 minutes? I have a thing I need to chat about." And then you have the opportunity to tell me, "Hey, my whirlwind time is at 3." Or, "Hey, I'm not available today. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll have my whirlwind time. I'd be happy to connect with you then." But again, it creates this very simple ways of operating together as a team where we are aligning our calendars to the most important work and we're making sure that everyone's needs get met.
I I can't tell you how exciting this is to hear about and to know that Time Boss is available because I definitely know some folks that can benefit from it.
Right.
Um, Last question, and unless there's any point that we didn't hit on that you want to touch on, but if you were speaking today to anybody that's hearing all of this who's like, yes, this is me, what's some advice you can give them other than obviously investigating
Sure.
timeboss.us? And again, we'll share that link and any other links that you want to share. And I know you do some public speaking. We'll put your LinkedIn up so that people know how to get in touch.
Great.
But what guidance or advice would you offer to somebody who's got the needle buried right now?
Yeah. I think if step one, if for someone's listening that where they like this and they just want to get started, I think the number one thing that people can do to start taking back control of their time is to separate out reactive time and focus time. And for a lot of us, we just treat all day as reactive. We show up
Sure.
before our feet hit the floor in the morning, we're checking our email, checking our teams, and we're essentially reacting. We're looking for what are the fires out there that I may need to handle or who needs me. And my encouragement to you, if you're listening just to start, I would say give your first hour of the day to the hardest thing on your to-do list. Before you look at your email, before you look at Teams, maybe even before you go to the office, go to Starbucks instead of going into the office or wherever you choose to work. But separate out some focused time where you can make a really hard thing happen, and then the rest of the day, open yourself up to the crazy. But what you need to see is you actually do have some authority over your time. It's not completely out of your control. You can take back control of your time, and your brain needs that freedom to focus. It needs permission to sit still and look at one thing at a time and attack it, knowing the rest of your day you're going to be reactive. But as if you want to begin to experience what it's like to experience a little bit more peace in your workday, I would encourage you to just reclaim 1 hour first thing in the morning and then let the rest of your day run the way it is now and just see what happens with that hour. And I think you might see a glimmer of what might be possible if you took full control of your time and truly became that time boss in your world.
That's great advice. And I have to tell you, so I hit you with all the questions. I interrupted you. I threw new concepts at you. You have proven that you can absolutely run your life from a place of peace because you didn't get shaken one time. So my compliments to you, Andrew. It's been
Uh,
a true pleasure. My guest today is Andrew Hartman. He's the founder of Time Boss. He's a speaker, a coach, and soon to be author. And I can't wait to read that book. And today he demonstrated how all of his learning and experience has really helped him come to a place where he and his team can teach others to lead from a place of peace rather than a place of pressure. It's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you, Andrew.
awesome. Thanks so much, Joshua. Great to be with you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My name is Joshua Kornitsky. I am a professional implementer of the entrepreneurial operating system and your host here on High Velocity Radio. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.